completely sublimely different right now. A year ago, Britain's first national sperm bank opened in Birmingham. But do you know, only 9 men are registered as donors. A change in the law in 2005 removed anonymity for sperm donors, and that is thought to have led to a drop in volunteers. Well, the chief executive of the sperm bank is now planning a huge recruitment drive to encourage more men to donate. And she joins us right now. That's Laura Wichens. Hello there, Laura.
Good morning.
Hi. Can you explain why you think there has been this reluctance on the part of British men to come forward and donate sperm?
Well, first of all, I would like to say, wow, we've got as many as 9 donors, and I will come to that if you let me later on.
Quality donors.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've never set out to change the crisis in the UK within 1 year. But there are 3 things that make it very difficult to donate, to look for sperm donors. One of them, it actually is a bit more than walking into a clinic and doing your bid once. You actually need to commit to going to a clinic twice a week for a period of 3 to 4 months. Then there's a blood test after that. So in total, the whole process where you need to be committed to go to a clinic is about 6 to 9 months. So that's quite long.
Yes.
One of the other problems is that even if a man has proven fertility, so he's a father himself, his sperm may not be good enough to become a sperm donor. And that is, we need to freeze it. And it's not necessarily the freezing that kills it, but it's actually the thawing. Either way, it means that 80 to 90% of the men who are actually committed to what is already a huge task fall out, they drop off. And another thing is quite a few of the myths that surround sperm donation is that you become the legal father, or the thoughts about it, it's smutty, it's not something people want to talk about, it has no pride attached to it, it's a bit of a dirty thing. All that stuff doesn't help either.
Yeah. What is the legal situation? Because they changed the law in 2005, which now means that a child born of that sperm donation has the right at the age of 18 to look up their father.
Yes, well, first of all, it's not the father, he's a donor, but you're absolutely right. By the time the donor-conceived person is 18, he or she can find out identifiable information. That is, of course, if he or she knows that it's donor-conceived in the first place. But it's exactly what it says on the tin, is finding out identifiable information, and then, yes, of course, they can look up their donor. But it's not to look for a replacement father or for financial support. In fact, donors who go via a registered clinic in the UK are not financially legally responsible for the child at all. There's protection there. But what these people want to know is they look in the mirror, well, all the time, but arguably they ask themselves, so why can I only place half of me? Where does my curly hair come from, or my musical talent? And it's that type of information. So they want, some of them, not all of them, want the opportunity to not just thank the donor, but actually want to see where half of their genes come from. And that's a perfectly understandable and reasonable request, because I'm sure we all can relate to know how important it is to knowing, oh yeah, I've got that from my mother, or yeah, my father does these funny things as well. And they have got half of them missing. So that's what it is, nothing more than that.
No, but I guess a lot of men might worry that the law on that has not yet been tested, because no children of who have been conceived since the law change, no children have yet reached the age of 18. And I guess some men might worry, well, what if any of those 18-year-olds at some point decided they did want to come and knock on the door and say, Daddy, I hold you financially responsible, and I'm going to take you to law about it. That's what they're worried about, yeah?
I'm sure some of them are worried, and some of them don't even go that far. They just don't want to have the responsibility, and that's okay too. We're not looking for every man to donate. We counsel donors very carefully that they are aware that people may well contact them. But the law doesn't have, it's not a grey area, there's no guidelines. It is enshrined in law that the donor is not responsible. Either way, even at 18, not even the parents are financially responsible for a child, technically anyway.
Well, that's true.
So even, so, an 18-year-old in that sense are on their own. Some of them shouldn't be, but the reality is that nobody's responsible for an 18-year-old other than themselves. But it is a real fear, and that's, if men have an issue with it, we say, well, just don't donate. It's not something you can forget about, and it's not something you can hide away from.
Are men paid for the samples they provide?
They are paid £35 per visit, which is typically to cover expenses, and in some cases, if they live nearby the clinic, a recognition from the cyber network.
So you're not going to get rich on it?
No, you're definitely not going to get rich on it, even if you go twice a week for 3-4 months.
Would it increase more donors if you increased the fee?
Oh, totally. But the question is, should we? Would we get more kidney donors if we pay thousands of pounds? Of course we do. But the reality is that if you throw money into the pot, you change the whole dynamics of it. And whilst we can test for a lot of illnesses in the blood, and we can ask for, and they will ask for your medical background via your GP, there are certain things that people can hide or can be creative about if money is involved. It's the same like selling a house. I mean, nobody's going to tell about the leaking tap or the noisy neighbors. And, and if you do it for the money, you may forget to mention that you have the human equivalent of noisy neighbours.
Yes, I see. And as you say, while you test for as much as you possibly can test for, it's ridiculous to encourage the wrong sort of person to come forward.
Well, absolutely. And we see that in countries where they do pay a lot more. Is somebody who has one dancing class will he will portray himself as a classical trained dancer, or they don't ask for a university degree, so all of a sudden everybody is a scholar and everybody runs the 100 meters in 9 seconds, because these are the things nobody tests for. But they do know that donors who are with lots of qualifications are much sought after, and therefore in these countries can demand a lot of money. So it's a balancing act. It's not just about the donors, it's about the patients, it's about being truthful, and most importantly it's about the donor conceived at the end of this as well.
Well, Laura, stay with us. We're going to break for a bit of music here, but when we come back, let's talk about what your plans are to have a big recruitment drive, and what you think are the messages that will encourage British men to come forward. So we'll talk about that in just a couple of moments. Right now here on BBC Radio Berkshire, let's hear from the great man himself, Bruce Springsteen, and Dancing in the Dark. We are talking about Britain's first national sperm bank, which opened in Birmingham a year ago, but as we were saying, only has registered 9 men as donors, although the chief executive says they're 9 brilliant donors. And she's Laura Wichens, and she is still with me right now. Laura, you have experience of doing a big recruitment drive, for instance, in Denmark to get men to donate sperm. I think Denmark has the highest number of sperm donors ever, doesn't it?
They do, and there are some lessons to be learned, but I think it's very important to recognise that what Denmark does, they are a sperm bank. That's what they do. It's a standalone organisation, and they've been running for many years, and that's why the number of 9 donors we have from, we're running on £77,000 for 9 months. So you can't compare an NHS clinic on government funding with an organisation that's been running for years. But where we are different, and I think we need to maintain this in the UK, is that we look at it much more holistically. It's not about recruiting donors. We need to weigh up the sensitivities for the patients and for the donor conceived as well. Would we get more donors if we pay money? Of course we do. Would we get more donors if we appeal to the male vanity and have men pumping their chest? Yes, but you know what? I don't think the message to send out that your masculinity is linked to your fertility is a good one, because by stating that sperm donors are very good, you could argue we're stating that the men who have problems in that department are not good men. Well, actually, that's not the message we would like to take. But
it worked in Denmark, though, didn't it? You sort of went down the Viking line, didn't you?
They did. I mean, I have, in that sense, luckily nothing to do with Denmark, but they did. And again, they look at it differently, and that's their prerogative. They can do that, but that's not the line we take. We work with patients and donor-conceived people as well, and you have to sometimes wonder whether it's the right thing to do. And we like to. It is difficult, this balancing act, because to do the right thing is not necessarily the easiest way of doing things, and we feel we're doing it the right way, and again, that's not the easiest.
So what way are you going to, what message are you going to put out there with this recruitment drive, as it were?
Well, we want to make guys aware that it's a wonderful thing they can do. What they're doing is the gift of life, and it makes a huge difference to people who otherwise, without them, couldn't have the enormous gift of a family. It is about raising awareness. It is about getting as many men to come forward. It takes about 100 men to inquire to lead to one donor, simply because it's such a difficult process. So we need thousands and thousands of men to pick up the phone or send a text message and say, yes, I would like to become a donor. And then we take it from there. So it is programs like this, and if people are listening now, I mean, if they want to, if they're interested, all they need to do is text the word donor to 88802, and then take it from there. And that's what we need is days like yesterday and today, and make men aware of it.
So text the word donor and 88802.
Yes, and we'll take it from there.
That's the modern way to do it.
That's the modern way to do it.
I mean, you have a huge responsibility even in asking donors to come forward, because if you're asking young men who aren't yet fathers naturally themselves to come forward, they may discover things about their own fertility that perhaps, well, yes, it's good that they know it, but it could come as a shock.
It could be, although with men it works slightly different than with women. We are born with all our eggs, but with men the sperm factory goes on until they die, basically. So even if it's not at best now, it could well mean that with good behavior, no sauna, no alcohol, reduced stress, they could improve the fertility. But you are right, things can be uncovered about your own health. But that's why we counsel donors. It's not a matter of, guys, we need you so much that we do whatever it takes. No, we have a very responsible process for donors and patients. And I guess that's where we're also different from other countries. And I think we should be proud of that and protect it as much as we can.
And it's interesting what you were saying earlier, is that there is this slight British reticence because we still have this, I guess, a hangover from the Victorian age of anything to do with sex and that sort of thing being a little bit dirty. And as you say, what you've got to get over is get past that and talk about the gift of life.
Well, the message we have with the Sperm Bank and one of the website is Very Special Man is because we want men to realize that it is, this is not about the process. This is not about what you do in a room to get your sperm. We all know that it involves a sexual act. Now get over it. Now what it needs is the men to realize that they create families. And I would like men to actually change their language. And if they come back from the lunch break and they have visited the Sperm Bank, to say, I've changed their life, I've done something wonderful, and then open up the conversation. So what have you done? Well, I've actually, donated sperm, rather than what's happening now. And that's why they don't say I've become a sperm donor, because then you get the questions or you get the comments, oh, it's very smutty, and they ask about the adult material that's available and all that stuff. And most men are not comfortable, and understandably comfortable, to talk about that. But the thing is that that's a culture change, and I've lived here for quite a few years now. And
like you say, we've got to get over that, haven't we?
Oh, I've got English-born children, and raised by a Dutch mother. But it's surprising how English they have become, much to my horror sometimes.
Sorry.
When it comes to this, it's really interesting.
It's pervasive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our weird, old-fashioned Victorian attitudes are pervasive still.
Yes, and I don't think it serves you anything really, because looking at all sorts of statistics on pregnancy and ill sexual health and all that, but it's the way it is, and it will take a bit longer, and it will take more than one sperm donor campaign to change that, I'm afraid.
When will you start your campaign? Because I did read that maybe you were going to do it somewhere before Christmas and actually emphasise the idea of giving a sort of Christmas gift.
The first one is planned for September, but in the Birmingham area, and depending how that goes, others are lined up for the year. And it would make sense to remind men that they could give the best gift they could ever give, and that will last a lifetime, rather than dodgy socks that end up in a drawer somewhere. At the same time, I want to emphasize the thing is with this subject, ultimately it's a very serious subject, but at the same time you need to get attention. But it's a balancing act about what is appropriate for all parties involved, and at the same time encouraging men to come forward. So yes, it's about giving, but we're not going to do it too flippantly, because I don't think we should do that with a subject like this.
No, absolutely. It's fascinating talking to you about it. Thank you so much for telling us all about it. We'll watch out for the campaign. And it's lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Actually, we're going to be talking to a sperm